Welcome to this quiet space, a place for gentle stories from the world of science to help you drift peacefully towards sleep. Tonight, we will journey together into a world that awakens only after the sun has gone, a landscape of profound stillness and hidden life. We will be exploring the quiet life of the desert at night. As we begin this journey, I would be so very grateful if you would share in the comments where you are listening from tonight, or perhaps a gentle thought about your day. Your presence here helps this small sanctuary grow. And if you feel moved to, please support this channel with a like and a subscription, which allows me to continue creating these soothing narratives for you. Thank you so much. Let us begin. The story of the desert night does not begin with the arrival of the first star, but with the slow, deliberate retreat of the sun. Imagine for a moment the immense and overwhelming presence of the daylight sun, a celestial furnace that for 12 hours has poured its relentless energy upon the sand, bleaching the world in a haze of white and shimmering heat. The air itself feels thick, a heavy blanket that smothers sound and movement, forcing all but the most resilient of life into the cool sanctuary of the deep earth. This is a world of pure, unfiltered energy, a place where the sky is not blue but a pale, washed-out silver, and the horizon dances with mirages, watery ghosts, in a land defined by its thirst. The silence of the day is not a peaceful one. It is a tense, breathless quiet. The silence of a world holding its breath, waiting for a release that only the turning of the planet can bring. And then, as the Earth continues its silent orbital waltz, the angle of the sun begins to shift. It is not a sudden change, but a gradual softening, a slow tilting of the great cosmic lamp. The shadows, which for hours had been small, frightened things huddled at the base of rocks, begin to stretch and lengthen, flowing like cool ink across the burning canvas of the sand. This is the moment of twilight, a magical intermission between two vastly different worlds, and its beauty is born from the physics of our own atmosphere. As the sun sinks lower, its light no longer takes the most direct path to the ground, but must travel sideways through a much thicker slice of the Earth's gaseous envelope. This long journey is a kind of filter. The shorter wavelengths of light, the blues and the violets, are more easily scattered away by the molecules of nitrogen and oxygen in the air, a phenomenon known as Rayleigh scattering. This is why the daytime sky appears blue, because we are seeing that scattered blue light coming at us from all directions. But now, with the sun at the horizon, that blue light is scattered away from our line of sight so effectively that it never reaches us, leaving only the longer wavelengths to complete the journey. The reds, the oranges, and the deep golds, with their more resilient, longer waves, push through the dense atmosphere to paint the western sky in hues of fire and apricot. It is a final, spectacular exhalation of the day's energy, a visual echo of the heat that the land has endured. The world is momentarily bathed in a soft, warm glow, a gentle reprieve before the profound cool of the darkness to come. And in this moment, the desert seems to sigh, its tense silence giving way to a deeper, more peaceful quiet. As the last sliver of the sun's crimson rim dips below the horizon, the most significant transformation begins, not in the sky, but in the earth itself. All day long, the sand has been a vast reservoir of thermal energy, each of the trillions upon trillions of silica grains, absorbing the sun's radiation, growing hotter and hotter. But sand, composed largely of silicon dioxide, has what scientists call a low specific heat capacity. This is a simple but profound property, which means that it does not require much energy to raise its temperature, and conversely, it loses that energy just as quickly. Unlike water, which has a very high specific heat capacity and can hold on to its warmth for a long time, the sand lets go of its heat with an astonishing swiftness. The moment its source of energy is gone, the desert floor begins to broadcast its stored warmth back out into space in the form of infrared radiation. You cannot see this light with your eyes, but if you could, you would witness the entire landscape glowing with a ghostly invisible light, a great, silent exhalation of heat. This rapid release is the reason for the dramatic temperature drop that defines the desert night, a plunge of 30 or even 40 degrees Celsius in just a few hours. The land is breathing out the fire of the day, and with every breath, a deeper coolness settles upon the world. This cooling process creates a fascinating and delicate world of its own, right at the boundary between the earth and the air. Just above the surface of the sand, a thin stratum of the atmosphere, known as the thermal boundary layer, begins to form. This is the very first layer of air to surrender its heat to the cooling ground beneath it and the vast, cold emptiness of the sky above. It becomes a distinct microenvironment, a shallow river of cool, dense air that flows gently into the low places, pooling in the hollows between dunes. In the last vestiges of twilight, you might see it as a faint shimmer, the air itself seeming to dance as the final waves of heat radiate upwards through it. This is where the night truly begins, in this invisible, sensitive layer, where the desert floor first communicates its transformation to the atmosphere. It is a quiet, intricate exchange, the earth letting go of its burden of heat, and the air receiving this offering and carrying it away into the infinite dark. And as this process completes itself, the land settles. The tense, shimmering silence of the day has been replaced by a vast, cool, and welcoming stillness. The world is now ready for a different kind of light and a different kind of life. And into this profound and welcoming stillness, the first of the night's luminaries arrive, not as a sudden flood, but as gentle scattered messengers from an impossibly distant past. A single photon, a tiny particle of light, ends its immense journey here. Born perhaps in the heart of a blue giant star in a nameless constellation, it has travelled across the vacuum of space for 1,000 years, a solitary traveller on a journey of unimaginable loneliness. It has crossed nebulae where new stars are being born and flown past the ghosts of stars that died long ago. For centuries, it has moved at the one true speed limit of the universe, a tiny, massless packet of electromagnetic energy, until in the final fraction of a second of its existence, it falls upon the surface of a single grain of desert sand, its long journey complete. And it is not alone. It is joined by countless others, a gentle rain of ancient light from every star in the visible sky, a soft, cumulative glow that begins to reveal the new shape of the world. This is starlight, the oldest and most subtle illumination, a light that speaks of distance and of time itself. Soon, this faint starlight is joined by a much brighter, yet still gentle, source of light. The moon begins its ascent, not with the harsh authority of the sun, but with a quiet, silvery grace. Its light is not its own. It is a mirror, a celestial reflector of the same sunlight that so recently scorched the sand. But it is a transformed light, softened and cooled by its journey from the sun to the moon and then to the earth. As it washes over the desert, it reveals the features of its own ancient surface. The face of the moon is a story written in geology and violence. The dark, smooth patches that we sometimes imagine as seas or oceans, the Luna Maria, are vast plains of basaltic lava, the result of cataclysmic asteroid impacts billions of years ago that cracked the moon's crust and allowed magma from its once molten mantle to flood the surface. The brighter, more rugged areas are the lunar highlands, the moon's original crust, ancient and heavily cratered, composed of a lighter-coloured rock called a northocite. The light that falls on the desert tonight is therefore a reflection from a world of grey rock and dark, frozen seas, a silent, time-worn companion to our own planet. This soft, second-hand light interacts with the desert floor in a way that is utterly different from the harsh light of day. And the secret to the landscape's nighttime luminosity is a property known as albedo. Albedo is simply a measure of how much light a surface reflects. A dark surface, like asphalt or rich soil, has a low albedo. It absorbs most of the light that strikes it. But the pale, quartz-rich sand of the desert has a high albedo. It acts as a vast, diffuse mirror, catching the gentle moonlight and starlight and scattering it back into the night. The desert floor does not just get lit by the moon, it participates in the illumination, becoming a source of soft, ambient light itself. The crests of the dunes are painted in silver, while their slip faces, the steep slopes turned away from the moon, become pools of profound, velvety shadow. The world is rendered in a simple, elegant palette of black and silver, and this reflected glow is often enough for a keen-eyed traveller, whether human or animal, to navigate the transformed landscape. The desert at night does not hide itself in darkness. It simply reveals a different version of its beauty, a beauty sculpted from reflected ancient light. And as the external world transforms, so too does our internal world of perception. Our eyes, marvels of biological engineering, begin a quiet, chemical ballet to adapt to the dwindling light. During the day, our vision is dominated by specialized photoreceptor cells in the retina, called cone cells. We have 3 types of cones, each sensitive to a different wavelength of light, red, green, or blue. And it is the combined signals from these cells that allow our brains to perceive the rich tapestry of color. But cone cells require a great deal of light to function. As darkness falls, they gradually become dormant, and a different set of cells takes over, the rod cells. These rods are far more numerous than the cones, and are extraordinarily sensitive to even the smallest amounts of light, capable of detecting a single photon. However, we have only one type of rod cell, and it cannot distinguish between different wavelengths. This is the biological reason why we see the world at night in shades of grey, a mode of seeing known as scotopic vision. We trade the richness of colour for a heightened sensitivity, an ability to detect shape, movement, and contrast in the faintest of glows. The desert night, therefore, is not truly colourless. It is simply perceived through a different sense, a sense that is attuned to the subtle interplay of shadow and soft, silvery light, revealing a world that is at once familiar and utterly, beautifully strange. The world revealed by this soft, silvery light is a sculpture of impossible scale, a landscape of elegant curves and sharp, shadowed lines. And yet, it is not a silent or static creation. It is a living architecture, breathing and shifting with a quiet life of its own. To understand this place is to listen not just with your ears, but with your whole being, to the subtle story being told by the sand itself. The great dunes, some rising hundreds of feet into the star-dusted sky, may seem like permanent fixtures, as ancient and immovable as mountains, but they are, in truth, merely waves in a river of sand that flows on a timescale too slow for our eyes to perceive. They are the result of what geologists call aeolian processes, named after Aeolus, the Greek god of the winds. It is the wind, the invisible breath of the planet, that is the patient artist of this place. For millennia, the wind has carried individual grains of sand, lifting them from one place and depositing them in another, slowly, relentlessly, building these magnificent forms. Each dune is a testament to the power of a gentle, persistent force acting over an unimaginable stretch of time, a monument built from the smallest of things. If you were to stand on the crest of one of these dunes, on the sharp, delicate ridge where the windward slope meets the steep lee slope, you would be standing on a line of perfect, temporary equilibrium. This form is dictated by a simple law of physics known as the angle of repose. It is the steepest possible angle at which a loose material, like sand, can be piled without slumping. For dry sand, this angle is typically around 34 degrees. Every grain of sand on that steep face, known as the slip face, is held in a delicate balance between the downward pull of gravity and the friction between it and its neighbours. It is a kind of silent, collective agreement among billions of individual particles. The slightest disturbance, a breath of wind, the footstep of a tiny creature, can cause a cascade, a miniature avalanche of sand that whispers as it flows down the face, restoring the perfect angle. The dune is not a solid object, but a community of grains, constantly adjusting itself, always seeking this state of poised, graceful rest. It is a shape born from the mathematics of friction and gravity, an expression of physical law written in the language of sand. As the night deepens and the air grows colder still, another, more intimate process unfolds. The rapid cooling that began at sunset continues, and the sand, having radiated away the last of its stored warmth, now cools to match the temperature of the night air. As each microscopic grain of quartz cools, it contracts by a minuscule amount. A single grain contracting is of no consequence, an event of infinitesimal smallness. But when this happens to trillions upon trillions of grains at once, The cumulative effect is that the entire structure of the dune settles and shifts. This immense, collective movement creates a sound so subtle it is almost on the edge of perception. It can be a faint, drawn-out whisper, like the sigh of a sleeping giant. In some parts of the world, under the right conditions of grain size and humidity, this thermal contraction can cause the dunes to produce a low, resonant hum, a phenomenon known as the singing of the sands. It is the sound of the desert itself, a quiet music generated by the cooling of the planet, a geological lullaby. The earth is speaking, not in a language of words, but of pure physics, a vibration that you can feel as much as you can hear, a testament to the immense and hidden activity present in the most profound stillness. This strange and beautiful behavior is the subject of a whole field of science known as granular physics, which studies how vast collections of individual solid particles can behave in ways that are surprisingly complex and fluid. Sand is neither a true solid, nor a liquid, nor a gas, but a state of matter all its own, with its own unique rules. A dune can stand firm like a solid mountain, yet the wind can make its surface flow and ripple like water. A gentle breeze can organize the grains into perfectly ordered, miniature waves on the surface, while a stronger gust can cause them to leap and bounce in a chaotic, turbulent cloud. This collective, emergent behavior is a source of endless fascination for scientists, for it mirrors so many other complex systems in the universe, from the clustering of stars in a galaxy to the firing of neurons in a brain. The desert floor is not just a pile of rock dust. It is a dynamic system, a natural laboratory where the fundamental laws of order and chaos are written in a script of silica. And so the landscape is not merely a stage for the night's events, but an active participant, its whispering architecture a constant, soothing reminder of the deep and intricate forces that have shaped it and are shaping it still in the cool, silent darkness. The whispering architecture of the sand is not the only source of sound in the deepening night, for the geological sighs of the cooling earth are now joined by stirrings of a different kind. From beneath the surface, out of the deep, insulated silence of the sand itself, emerges the unseen kingdom. This is the world of the Nocturnal, a vast and varied community of life that has turned its back on the sun, and in doing so, has mastered this formidable environment. Their activity in the darkness is not a matter of choice or preference. It is the cornerstone of their existence, an elegant and ancient solution to the desert's most pressing problems. To be active at night is to be shielded from the lethal temperatures of the day, a time when the surface of the sand can become hot enough to cook an egg. It is also a way to avoid the keen eyesight of diurnal predators, like hawks and eagles, trading the bright, open arena of the day for a world of shadow and scent, a world with a different set of rules and a different cast of characters. The night is their sanctuary, their time of freedom, their entire world. For most of the day, this hidden kingdom has been resting in a world beneath the world we see. The single most important survival tool for the majority of desert animals is the burrow. A simple tunnel dug into the sand or soil is not just a hiding place. It is a masterpiece of personal climate control. Just a few feet below the surface, the extreme temperature fluctuations of the desert all but disappear. While the air above may swing by more than 30 degrees Celsius, the temperature in a jerboa's burrow might remain within a stable and comfortable range all day and all night. Furthermore, the air inside a burrow is significantly more humid, as the moisture from the animal's own breath becomes trapped, creating a microenvironment that drastically reduces the constant, life-threatening dehydration that occurs on the surface. These burrows are subterranean arks, sheltering their inhabitants not just from heat, but from the dryness that pulls the very water from their bodies. So when the first creatures emerge, they are rising from a place of cool, stable darkness into a world that has finally become just as hospitable. Not all of this life emerges at once. The first to appear are often the crepuscular creatures, the masters of the in-between. They are most active during the dim, transitional light of dusk and dawn, a time when there is just enough light to see, but not enough for their predators to see them clearly. A desert cottontail might venture from its hiding place under a thorny shrub, its large ears swiveling to catch the faintest sound, its sensitive nose reading the chemical stories on the cooling air. These animals are the bridge between the two worlds, exploiting the brief period when the guards are changing, when the hunters of the day have retired and the hunters of the night have not yet begun their patrols in earnest. Their movements are cautious and deliberate, their senses heightened, their very being tuned to the delicate and fleeting opportunities that twilight provides. They are the gentle heralds of the darkness, their quiet foraging a sign that the great shift is now truly underway. Following them, as the last vestiges of twilight fade from the sky and the full, deep darkness takes hold, the true nocturnal creatures begin to stir. From beneath a flat stone, a desert scorpion emerges, a living relic from a time before the dinosaurs. It moves with an ancient, deliberate slowness, its body a marvel of physiological adaptation. Its hard, waxy exoskeleton, its suit of chitinous armor, is not just for protection, but is a near-perfect barrier against water loss, allowing it to thrive in conditions of extreme aridity. Its metabolism is a model of efficiency, slowed to such a degree that it can survive for over a year without a meal, waiting patiently for the right moment. It does not need to rush. It is a creature built by 400 million years of evolution to be a master of this quiet, moonlit world. As it moves silently across the sand, its pincers extended, its tail arched in readiness, it is the first actor to step onto the now living stage. The desert is no longer just a landscape of stone and sand. It is now a theatre, and the silent, intricate drama of its hidden life has begun. Against the backdrop of this emerging nocturnal kingdom, the most profound character of the desert night makes itself known: the silence. It is a silence so deep and so vast that it feels like a physical presence, a soft weight that settles over the landscape and stills the mind. But to think of it as a mere absence of noise is to misunderstand its true nature. The silence of the desert is not an emptiness. It is a symphony of subtleties, a rich and complex soundscape that is only revealed when the clamour of the world is stripped away. Its unique quality is born from the very physics of the land and air. In a forest, sound waves ricochet off countless trees, creating a complex web of echoes and reverberations. In a city, they bounce from concrete and glass, creating a harsh, cacophonous roar. But here, the soft, porous texture of the sand and the low humidity of the air act as a perfect acoustic absorber. Sound waves travel with astonishing clarity, yet they do not linger. A sound happens, it is heard, and then it is gone, swallowed by the immense softness of the landscape. This process, known as sound attenuation, creates a feeling of intimacy and closeness, a sense that every small sound is a private event, even in this vast, open space. In this acoustically dampened world, we are given the rare opportunity to approach the very limits of our own perception. Our sense of hearing has a lower boundary, a floor of faintness below which we can detect nothing. This is known as the absolute threshold of hearing, a level of sound intensity measured at 0 decibels. A modern recording studio, with its layers of soundproofing, might achieve a background noise level of 10 or 15 decibels. But on a calm, windless night in the heart of the desert, the ambient noise can fall so low that it approaches this absolute limit, and as the external world falls away, the internal world rises to meet us. You begin to hear the quiet, rhythmic drum of your own heart beating in your chest. You can perceive the faint, rushing sound of blood flowing through the veins and arteries near your ears. These are sounds that are with us every moment of our lives, but they are completely masked by the noise of our ordinary existence. Here, in the profound quiet, the body's own secret music is revealed, a deeply calming and centering experience that reminds us we are not separate from the world, but are a living, breathing, pulsing part of its deep and resonant stillness. This calming effect is not just a matter of poetry, it is a recognized principle of psychoacoustics, the study of how our brains and minds respond to sound. Our brain is a relentless filtering machine, constantly working below the level of our consciousness to process the sounds of our environment, to identify what is important and what can be ignored. The constant drone of traffic, the hum of electronics, the chatter of voices, this all creates a significant cognitive load, a low-level but persistent stress on our nervous system. When that constant barrage of auditory information is removed, our brain is granted a profound rest. The filtering mechanisms can stand down, the cognitive load is lifted, and a sense of peace and clarity can emerge. The mind, freed from the need to constantly monitor the external world, can turn inward. This is why so many ancient traditions have sought out the silence of the desert for meditation and contemplation. The environment itself is a tool for quieting the inner chatter of the mind, allowing for a deeper connection to oneself and to the vast, silent world that envelops us. And yet, even beneath this perceptible silence, there is another layer of sound, a vibration that is felt more than it is heard. This is the world of infrasound. The range of human hearing typically extends down to about 20 Hz, but there are sounds with frequencies far below this limit. The slow, steady movement of wind over the vast, undulating surfaces of the dunes can generate powerful vibrations in this infrasonic range. Distant earthquakes or the slow, grinding movements of tectonic plates can send these low-frequency waves traveling for thousands of miles through the Earth's crust. We cannot hear these sounds in the conventional sense, but our bodies can perceive them as a subtle pressure, a deep, resonant hum that seems to emanate from the ground itself. It is a feeling of immense scale and power held in perfect stillness. So the silence of the desert is not an absence at all. It is a rich and layered presence. The clear, intimate attenuation of small sounds, the approach to the threshold of our own hearing, the quieting of the mind's restless machinery, and the deep, unheard vibrations of the planet itself. It is the perfect, silent stage upon which an entirely different kind of drama, a drama of secret chemistry, is about to unfold. Within this deep and resonant silence, an intense and silent industry is at work, a form of life that operates not through movement or sound, but through the elegant and precise language of chemistry. All around us, the desert plants, which in the harsh light of day appear as stoic, dormant sculptures, are now at their busiest. They are the master chemists of this environment, and the cool darkness of the night is their laboratory. Their central challenge is one of the great paradoxes of life in an arid land. To perform photosynthesis, they must take in carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. But to do so, they must open the tiny pores on their leaves or stems, called stomata. Opening these pores under the heat of the sun would be an act of suicide, leading to catastrophic water loss through evaporation. The desert's thirst is relentless, and it would pull the very life-giving water from their cells in a matter of hours. So, over millions of years of evolution, many desert plants, especially succulents like cacti and agaves, have devised a breathtakingly clever solution. They have separated the process of photosynthesis into two distinct stages, governed by the rhythm of day and night. This strategy is known as crassulacean acid metabolism, or CAM photosynthesis. As the cool night air settles over the desert, these plants open their stomata. In the darkness, shielded from the sun, and benefiting from the higher relative humidity of the night, they can breathe in the carbon dioxide they need without risking fatal dehydration. But they cannot use it yet, as the light-dependent reactions of photosynthesis obviously require sunlight. So, they perform a remarkable chemical feat. They take this gaseous carbon dioxide, and using specialized enzymes, they convert it into a chemical compound called malic acid. This acid is then stored in the vacuoles of their cells, the cellular equivalent of a storage tank. All through the night, the plant is diligently, silently stockpiling its raw materials, its acidity level rising steadily until just before dawn. The night shift is dedicated entirely to gathering supplies, a period of quiet, chemical industry. Then, as the first rays of sun strike the desert, the plant closes its stomata, sealing itself off from the drying air, and begins the day shift, using the stored malic acid and the energy of the sunlight to complete the process of photosynthesis, creating the sugars it needs to live and grow. This intricate chemical dance is protected by a simple, yet profoundly effective, physical defense. The surface of every desert plant is coated in a thin, translucent layer known as the waxy cuticle. Composed of lipids and hydrocarbon polymers, this cuticle is a near-perfect waterproof barrier. It is the plant's armor, its first and last line of defense against the relentless thirst of the desert air. It seals the precious water inside, drastically reducing the amount that can escape through the surface of the plant. This waxy layer is what gives many succulents their characteristic glossy, almost plastic-like appearance, a visual clue to their secret of survival. Without this simple seal, the sophisticated chemistry of CAM photosynthesis would be for naught. And inside, at the cellular level, another constant, silent battle is being waged. The plant cells maintain their structure and rigidity through a state known as turgor, which is governed by the principle of osmotic pressure. Each cell actively pumps solutes into its central vacuole, creating a concentrated inner solution. This high concentration naturally draws water into the cell from its surroundings, causing the cell to swell and press firmly against its rigid cell wall. It is this internal pressure that keeps the leaves and stems of the plant firm and upright. In the desert, where water is the most precious of all commodities, maintaining this turgor is a constant, energy-intensive struggle, a silent, microscopic flexing of chemical muscle in every living cell. But the chemistry of survival is not just an internal affair. It extends outwards into the very soil itself, defining the relationships between plants. Consider the creosote bush, one of the most successful and widespread desert shrubs. The spacing of these bushes often appears strangely uniform, as if they were planted by hand. This is the result of a form of silent warfare called allelopathy. The roots of the creosote bush exude a cocktail of chemicals into the soil that are toxic to the seedlings of other plants, including their own. This chemical inhibition prevents competitors from taking root nearby, ensuring that the parent plant has exclusive access to the limited supply of water in its immediate vicinity. The landscape, therefore, is a map of these invisible chemical territories, a silent testament to the fierce, relentless competition for life in a world of scarcity. The seemingly peaceful desert floor is in fact a chemical battlefield, and the plants are not passive inhabitants, but active, silent combatants in the great drama of survival. The silent, chemical world of the plants provides the stage, a landscape of patient survival. But upon this stage moves a world of active, vibrant perception. The animals of the night navigate this immense darkness, not as a void, but as a rich and detailed environment, read and interpreted through senses so finely tuned they border on the magical. Each creature is enclosed in its own sensory bubble, its own private universe of awareness. And to imagine the desert night is to imagine these many different worlds, all layered upon one another, all coexisting in the same quiet space. To our eyes, the landscape is a gentle painting of silver and shadow, but to the other inhabitants of the night, it is a world of heat signatures, a complex map of echoes, a tapestry of scent, and a chorus of vibrations hidden beneath the sand. We are surrounded by realities that we can never directly experience, but can only approach through the gentle lens of scientific understanding. Consider the sidewinder viper, moving in its strange and beautiful J-shaped motion across the sand, a dance designed to minimize contact with the hot ground it remembers from the day. It hunts in what we would call total darkness. Yet for the snake, its prey is as visible as a lantern in a dark room. Between its eyes and its nostrils, the viper possesses a pair of exquisitely sensitive organs known as pit organs. These are not eyes, they are thermal detectors, capable of sensing minute differences in infrared radiation, the invisible heat energy given off by all living things. The nerve endings in these pits can detect temperature changes of less than 0.003 of a degree Celsius. This information is sent to the same part of the brain that processes optical information, effectively giving the snake a sixth sense. It sees the world twice over, once in the reflected, visible light of the moon and stars, and again in the emitted, invisible light of thermal energy. A kangaroo rat, huddled and still, is a cool, grey shape to the snake's eyes. But to its pit organs, it is a glowing, vibrant beacon of warmth against the cold, dark background of the sand. The snake strikes not at what it sees, but at this ghost image of heat, a feat of sensory integration that makes the darkness irrelevant. Now, lift your attention from the sand to the air above, where a desert bat flits and weaves in a flight that seems impossibly erratic and yet perfectly controlled. The bat's eyes are small, and its vision is poor. It does not navigate by sight. Instead, it has mastered the art of seeing with sound. As it flies, it emits a constant stream of high-frequency clicks and calls, pulses of sound pitched far above the upper limit of human hearing. These sound waves travel out from the bat and bounce off every object in their path: a jagged rock, the broad leaf of a yucca, the delicate, fluttering wings of a moth. The echoes of these sounds return to the bat's large, intricate ears, and its brain performs a computational feat that would rival a supercomputer. By analyzing the tiny time delay between sending the call and receiving the echo, the bat determines the distance to an object. By interpreting the subtle shifts in the sound's pitch and texture, it can discern an object's size, shape, and even its material properties. This is the world of echolocation, a constant, ultrasonic conversation between the bat and its environment, creating a rich, three-dimensional, and continuously updated map of the world, all rendered in the language of sound. Back on the desert floor, a different kind of auditory marvel is at work. A fennec fox steps delicately from its burrow, its most noticeable feature being its enormous satellite dish ears. While these ears do help to radiate body heat, their primary purpose is to grant their owner a sense of hearing that is almost supernatural. The size of the external ear is only part of the story. The true adaptation lies within its skull, in a feature known as hypertrophied auditory bullae. These are the bony, hollow structures of the middle and inner ear, and in the fennec fox, they are proportionally massive, acting as a natural resonating chamber that dramatically amplifies the faintest of sounds. With this incredible sensitivity, the fox does not just hear the world on the surface, it hears the world beneath the surface. It can detect the faint, scratching footsteps of a beetle or the subterranean munching of a grub moving inches below the sand. Its world is a symphony of tiny, secret sounds, a source of information that reveals a menu of food completely hidden from sight. And weaving through all of these realities is the oldest and most universal sense of all, the sense of smell or chemoreception. The cool, dense, and stable night air is a perfect medium for carrying the chemical messages that are the currency of the nocturnal world. The air is not empty, it is a library. The scent molecules released by a flowering, night-blooming cereus are a map for the hawk moth seeking its nectar. The pheromones released by a female moth are an irresistible beacon to a male, who can detect them from more than a mile away. For a coyote on its nightly patrol, the scent markings left on a creosote bush by a rival are a newspaper, telling a detailed story of who has passed by, when, and what their intentions might be. For these creatures, the world is a rich tapestry of chemical information, a constant stream of messages about food, mates, and danger, all carried on the gentle, invisible currents of the night air. And so the desert is not one place, but an infinity of places, a mosaic of sensory realities, each complete and vivid, each utterly different from our own. These many invisible worlds, perceived through heat and sound and chemistry, are layered upon one another in the deep quiet of the night. And yet, there are still other secrets here, other layers of reality that are not hidden from our senses, but are simply waiting for the right kind of light to be revealed. For the desert night holds a strange and beautiful phenomenon, a form of light that is not born of fire or of distant stars, but from the very chemistry of life itself, a cold and silent glow that seems to rise from the ground itself. Let us return to the scorpion, that ancient and patient hunter we met earlier, as it makes its way across the moonlit sand. In the soft, silvery light, its armored body appears a pale, sandy yellow, perfectly camouflaged against its background. But if you were to pass the invisible beam of an ultraviolet lamp over this same scene, something truly magical would happen. As the beam touches the scorpion, it would instantly erupt in a brilliant, spectral, blue-green light, a ghostly and beautiful luminescence that seems to come from within its very being. This is not the scorpion's own light. It is a borrowed, transformed light, the result of a physical process known as fluorescence. The scorpion's exoskeleton, its cuticle, is infused with a complex cocktail of molecules, including proteins and compounds like beta-carboline, which have a very special property. These molecules are capable of absorbing the high-energy photons of ultraviolet light, a wavelength of light that is invisible to our human eyes. When one of these molecules is struck by a UV photon, its electrons are kicked into a higher, more energetic state. But this state is unstable, and almost instantly, the electron falls back to its original, comfortable energy level. As it falls, it releases the absorbed energy, but not all at once. A little bit is lost as heat, and the rest is emitted as a new photon of light. Because some energy was lost, this new photon has less energy than the one that was absorbed, which means it has a longer wavelength. It has been transformed from invisible, high-energy ultraviolet light into visible, lower-energy blue-green light. The scorpion is not creating light. It is a living transformer, silently catching the unseen energy of the night sky and rebroadcasting it in a color we can see. It is important to distinguish this quiet, passive process from its more famous cousin, bioluminescence. The light of a firefly, for instance, is the result of an active, internal chemical reaction. A substance called luciferin is combined with an enzyme called luciferase, and in the presence of oxygen and the cellular fuel ATP, a chemical reaction occurs that releases energy in the form of light. It is life generating its own illumination from scratch, a hot process in the chemical sense. The scorpion's glow, by contrast, is a cold light. It is a physical phenomenon, not a chemical one. It requires an external source of energy to function, whether it be the concentrated beam of a black light or the faint, scattered ultraviolet radiation that is always present in the light from the moon and stars. The scorpion's glow is a conversation with the cosmos, an answer to the invisible light that bathes the world, a silent, spectral echo. But the most profound question remains, why? Why has evolution gone to the trouble of equipping this creature with such a remarkable property? The honest answer is that science is not entirely sure, and this mystery only adds to its beauty. There are many fascinating hypotheses. Perhaps it is a way for scorpions to recognize each other in the dark, a secret channel of communication. Perhaps it is a relic of a past function, an evolutionary echo that no longer serves a purpose. A more recent and intriguing theory suggests that the scorpion might use its entire body as one giant eye to detect ultraviolet light. The glow itself would be a byproduct, but the sensory input it provides could tell the scorpion whether it is exposed under the open sky or safely hidden in the shadow of a rock, helping it to navigate and find shelter. Or, in the most poetic possibility of all, it may have no grand purpose. It may simply be a beautiful accident of biology, a consequence of the molecules that make its armor so tough and so good at protecting it from the desert's harshness. Whatever the reason, the image of the glowing scorpion remains one of the most iconic and haunting visuals of the desert night. It is a tiny, mobile constellation, a creature of the earth that mirrors the cold, distant light of the stars above. Its eerie, beautiful light is a perfect symbol for the quiet wonders of this place, a phenomenon visible to our own eyes, yet rooted in a deep and mysterious purpose that remains just beyond our full understanding, inviting us not to know all the answers, but to simply stand in awe of the questions. Lifting our gaze from the faint spectral glow of the scorpion on the sand, we let our eyes drift upwards, past the silhouettes of the ancient, sleeping cacti, past the planets that wander like lonely diamonds among the fixed stars, until our focus settles upon the grandest celestial feature of them all. On a night like this, in a place like this, far from the light-drowned skies of human cities, the Milky Way is revealed not as a faint, ethereal smudge, but as a vast, textured, and living river of light that flows from one end of the horizon to the other. It is a sight so immense and so profound that it can silence the mind and open a doorway to a sense of true cosmic scale. It feels as though we are looking out at something distant and separate from ourselves. Yet what we are witnessing is in fact the deepest and most intimate view of our own home. We are looking at our own galaxy, the island of stars in which our sun and our earth reside. But we are seeing it from the inside. Our solar system is located about 2/3 of the way out from the center, nestled within one of the galaxy's great spiral arms, the Orion Arm. From this vantage point, when we look towards the constellation of Sagittarius in the summer sky, we are looking back towards the dense, brilliant, and bulging core of our galaxy. The great river of light we see is the combined, hazy glow of billions upon billions of stars, their individual lights merging across the vast distances into a single, luminous band. We are like children standing in a forest, unable to see its overall shape because we are standing among the trees. The band of the Milky Way is the plain of the forest, the thickest concentration of trees, seen from our humble position within it. It is the architecture of our own cosmic city, a city of some 200 to 400 billion stars, and we are looking at its downtown lights. But this river of light is not uniform. It is streaked with intricate, dark lanes and patches, areas of seeming emptiness that look like holes in the fabric of the cosmos. Our ancestors saw these as shadows, the realms of celestial serpents or the roads of the dead. But science has revealed them to be the very opposite of emptiness. These dark rifts are vast, dense clouds of interstellar gas and dust, composed primarily of hydrogen, the raw material from which stars are made. They are stellar nurseries, cosmic wombs where gravity is slowly, patiently, pulling the dust and gas together into dense knots, which will eventually ignite with the fire of nuclear fusion to become new suns and new solar systems. These dark nebulae do not emit their own visible light, and they are so thick that they completely block the light of the billions of stars situated behind them. So when we look at these dark patches, we are seeing the places of creation, the quiet, dusty workshops where the next generation of stars is being forged. The river of light is a river of both life and birth, of brilliant suns and the dark, fertile dust from which they are born. And as we lie here, looking up at this cosmic spectacle, we are not just looking across an immense distance, we are looking back through an immense time. The light itself is our time machine. A light year, the distance light travels in a single year, is a measure so vast, nearly 6 trillion miles, that it is almost beyond meaning. But it can also be thought of as a unit of time. The light from the stars in the galactic center, the brightest part of the river, began its journey towards Earth some 27,000 years ago. It has been traveling across the void ever since, and is only now, tonight, ending its journey in our eyes. We are not seeing the galactic center as it is right now. We are seeing it as it was during the last ice age on Earth, the time when our own ancestors were painting images of mammoths on cave walls. Every star in the sky is a postcard from the past. The farther away we look, the deeper into history we see. And scattered around this great river, like faint, misty pearls, are other, even older relics. With a keen eye, or a pair of binoculars, you might be able to spot them. Small, fuzzy patches of light that resolve into tiny, spherical swarms of stars. These are the globular clusters, ancient cities of stars that orbit our galaxy like celestial satellites. Each cluster contains hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions, of stars, all born together in the early days of the universe, and all packed into a tight gravitational embrace. These stars are among the oldest in our galaxy, celestial fossils that date back more than 12 billion years, to a time when the Milky Way itself was only just beginning to form. As we lie on the cool desert sand, on a planet formed from the dust of long-dead stars, we look up at the living structure of our own galaxy, a place of constant birth, immense age, and unimaginable beauty, and we feel the profound and silent connection between the dust beneath us and the stars above. To gaze upon the grand celestial map of the Milky Way is to feel a sense of perspective and awe, to see our own existence as a tiny part of a truly magnificent whole. It feels like a site reserved for the contemplative minds of poets and philosophers. And yet, it is a breathtaking thought that this same cosmic map, this river of ancient light, is not just an object of wonder, but a practical tool, a compass used for navigation by one of the humblest and most determined creatures to walk the desert floor. The grandest structures in the universe are intimately connected to the smallest dramas of survival here on Earth, in a way that is more wondrous than any fiction. The story of this connection is the story of the celestial navigator, the dung beetle. Our protagonist is a creature of singular focus. Having found a valuable piece of animal dung, a rich source of nutrients, the beetle expertly shapes it into a perfect sphere. Its next and most critical task is to roll this precious ball away from the chaotic, competitive scrum at the dung pile as quickly and efficiently as possible. The optimal path is a perfectly straight line. Any deviation, any circling back towards the pile, wastes precious energy and dramatically increases the risk of the beetle's hard-won prize being stolen by its rivals. In the bright light of day, the beetle can use the sun as a fixed reference point to maintain its straight course. But many species are nocturnal, and on a moonless night, faced with the challenge of rolling a ball many times its own weight across a featureless landscape, how does it keep from wandering in circles? The answer is written in the river of light above. Groundbreaking research has shown that these remarkable insects navigate using the light of the Milky Way. Their small, compound eyes are not powerful enough to resolve individual stars, but they are more than capable of detecting the long, bright, hazy streak of our galaxy, contrasting it against the darker portions of the sky. Before it begins its journey, the beetle will often climb atop its dung ball and perform a small, seemingly ritualistic dance, turning in a circle. During this dance, it is believed to be taking a mental snapshot of the celestial scene above it. It memorizes the orientation of the great luminous band, and then, as it begins to roll its ball, it keeps this internal image fixed, constantly adjusting its path to maintain the same heading relative to the galaxy. The Milky Way, a structure that is hundreds of thousands of light-years across, becomes the compass for a journey of just a few yards, a cosmic guide for a terrestrial errand. On nights when the moon is out, the beetle has another, even more sophisticated celestial tool at its disposal. It can navigate by seeing a property of light that is completely invisible to our own eyes: its polarization. Light waves vibrate, and the light from the sun or moon is initially unpolarized, meaning its waves vibrate in all possible directions. However, as this light passes through the Earth's atmosphere, the tiny molecules of air scatter the light waves in such a way that they become organized, vibrating preferentially along a specific axis. This creates a vast, predictable pattern of polarized light across the entire dome of the sky. The dung beetle's eyes contain specialized photoreceptors that can detect this pattern. For the beetle, the sky is painted with invisible lines and halls of polarized light, all centered on the moon, providing a far more precise and detailed compass than even the hazy band of the galaxy. It is seeing a hidden layer of reality in the night sky and using it to find its way home. What the beetle is doing is a beautiful and fundamental act of what is known as cognitive mapping. It is building a simplified, functional model of its vast and complex environment inside its tiny brain. A brain smaller than a grain of rice. This ability is not unique to the beetle. It is a thread in the rich tapestry of animal navigation. Migratory birds that cross the desert on their long journeys do not just use the stars. Many can also perceive the Earth's magnetic field, sensing the invisible lines of force that curve between the poles, using them as another layer on their internal map. This is magnetoreception, a sense so alien to us it is difficult to even imagine. Each of these senses is a different way of reading the invisible information that flows through the world. And in the dung beetle's celestial navigation, we find the most profound and humbling of these connections. There is a direct, functional link between the structure of our home galaxy and the moment-to-moment survival of a tiny insect. The largest of scales and the smallest of scales are not separate. They are woven together in the quiet, intricate, and deeply intelligent drama of the desert night. The great, silent conversation between the Earth and the cosmos, between the dung beetle and the Milky Way, takes place through an invisible and often forgotten medium: the air itself. We are enveloped by it. We breathe it. We move through it our entire lives, and so we tend to think of it as a form of nothingness, an empty space between things. But the atmosphere of the desert night is not an emptiness. It is a vast, subtle, and complex chemical ocean, with its own unique properties and character, a medium that at once connects the world and protects it. Its most defining quality is its profound dryness, its lack of water vapor. In more humid climates, the air is thick with countless microscopic droplets of water, and these droplets act as a kind of visual static, scattering and blurring the light that passes through them. This is why, in a forest or by the sea, the stars often appear to twinkle and shimmer. But here, in the dry desert air, There is almost nothing to impede the journey of light. A photon that has travelled for 1,000 years from a distant star can complete the final few miles of its journey through our atmosphere almost unhindered, arriving at our eyes as a point of pure, steady, and unwavering light. The remarkable clarity of the desert sky is therefore a direct consequence of the air's great thirst. And yet, this clear, dry air is not without its own scent, its own chemical signature. As the night deepens and the temperature drops, the relative humidity, even here, rises just a little. And this slight increase in moisture is enough to unlock one of the most evocative fragrances in the natural world. It is the scent of the creosote bush, a smell that is often associated with rain, but which can perfume the air on a perfectly dry night. The leaves of this hardy plant are coated in a resinous, oily substance, a complex cocktail of volatile organic compounds that protects it from the sun and deters animals from eating it. These oils also permeate the dry soil around the plant. At the same time, colonies of soil bacteria, in their own silent processes of life, produce a compound called geosmin. As the humidity rises, these molecules are released from the soil and from the leaves, and they drift on the night air. It is a rich, earthy, slightly pungent smell, a fragrance that speaks of dust and water and deep time. It is the perfume of the desert itself, a chemical story told by the land and carried on the invisible breath of the atmosphere. As we breathe in this scented air, our imagination can travel upwards, rising through this lowest, densest layer of the atmosphere, the troposphere, where we live and breathe. We can imagine floating higher and higher into the thinner, colder air above, until we reach the next great layer, the stratosphere. And it is here, some 10 to 50 kilometers above the surface, that we would find the planet's silent, invisible guardian, the ozone layer. Ozone is a special kind of oxygen molecule. The oxygen we breathe is made of 2 oxygen atoms, what chemists call O2. But ozone is made of 3 oxygen atoms, O3. This seemingly small difference gives it a remarkable property. It is incredibly effective at absorbing high-energy ultraviolet radiation from the sun. All day, this thin, diffuse layer of gas acts as a planetary shield, absorbing the most harmful UV rays and preventing them from reaching the surface and damaging the delicate DNA of living things. Here, in the desert, with its often cloudless skies, this protection is especially critical. The ozone layer is a testament to how the most fragile and seemingly insignificant things, like a thin veil of gas miles above our heads, can create the necessary conditions for all the vibrant, tenacious life below. Bringing our focus back down to the air that immediately surrounds us, we become aware that it is not perfectly pure. It is filled with a fine, invisible dust, a constant suspension of microscopic particles known as aerosols. In the desert, these aerosols are mostly composed of infinitesimally small grains of minerals, quartz, feldspar, clay, whipped up from the desert floor by the winds of the day. They are a fine, invisible powder of the earth itself, held in the sky. During the dry season, they are simply part of the air we breathe, but they hold within them a profound promise. For when the weather patterns finally shift and moist air does arrive in the desert, it is these very dust particles that play the leading role in creating rain. Water vapor needs something to condense upon to form a droplet. It needs a seed. These mineral aerosols are the perfect condensation nuclei. The dust of the desert is thus the seed of its own rejuvenation. The earth offers up a part of itself to the sky, an offering that, under the right conditions, allows the sky to give back the gift of water. The atmosphere, then, is not an empty stage, but a dynamic participant, a chemical ocean that holds the clarity of the cosmos, the scent of life, and the very promise of its own renewal. The clear night air may hold the promise of a future rain, a fleeting and hoped-for event, but deep beneath our feet, in the silent, timeless darkness of the earth, lies the desert's greatest secret and its most profound memory, an immense and ancient reservoir of water. The story of the desert is a story of 2 worlds. There is the world we see on the surface, a world of dramatic scarcity, governed by the relentless cycle of sun and moon. And then there is the world below, a world of astonishing abundance, a liquid legacy from a long-forgotten time. To understand this place, we must journey downwards with our imagination, past the dry layers of sand and sun-baked earth, past the tangled roots of the desert shrubs, and deeper still, into the very bedrock of the continent itself. Here, deep within the Earth's crust, are vast, thick layers of porous rock, most often sandstone, laid down by ancient seas and winds hundreds of millions of years ago. This rock is not a solid, impermeable barrier. On a microscopic level, it resembles a sponge, its structure a matrix of individual sand grains cemented together, with countless tiny, interconnected spaces between them. And these spaces are completely saturated with water. This immense, waterlogged layer of rock is known as an aquifer, and the study of its hidden world is the science of hydrogeology. These aquifers can be enormous, some of them underlying entire regions, holding more water than all the Great Lakes combined. They are not underground rivers or lakes in the conventional sense, with open caverns of water, but rather a slow, patient saturation, water held in the quiet embrace of the stone itself. Much of this water is impossibly ancient. It is not the product of last year's rainfall, or even the rainfall of the last century. It is what scientists call fossil water, a direct inheritance from a different world. We must cast our minds back thousands of years to the time of the last great ice age. During this period, the Earth's climate was dramatically different. The regions that are now deserts were often cooler and wetter, home to vast networks of rivers, lakes, and savannas. For millennia, rain fell upon these lands, and just as it does today, some of it seeped deep into the ground, percolating slowly through the layers of soil and rock until it reached the great aquifers below. There, in the cold, stable, and protected darkness, it has remained trapped ever since, a liquid time capsule from a greener, more verdant past. This water is a finite resource, the desert's deep memory of a time of plenty, drawn upon by the modern world, but replenished so slowly that it is, on a human timescale, gone forever once it is used. In most places, this ancient memory lies hundreds or even thousands of feet below the surface, a hidden and inaccessible treasure. But occasionally, the contours of the land and the geology align in a special way. Where a valley or basin dips low enough, it can intersect with the upper level of this saturated rock, a level known as the water table. And where the water table meets the surface, the desert's secret is revealed. This is the origin of an oasis. It is not a miracle, but a beautiful and logical consequence of the world beneath. It is a window into the aquifer, a place where the fossil water, after its long stillness, can finally emerge into the sunlight, giving rise to a sudden, vibrant, and miraculous concentration of life, palm trees, reeds, and a sanctuary for the animals of the desert. The oasis is the place where the desert's two worlds, the arid world of the surface and the liquid world of the deep, finally touch. And even where this water does not break the surface, its presence can still be felt. The tenacious, deep-rooted plants of the desert, like the mesquite tree, have learned to reach for this hidden source. Their roots can burrow down 50, 100, even 200 feet into the earth, pushing through dry soil and rock until they find the damp layers far below. They are sustained by a process known as capillary action, the same physical principle that allows a dry sponge to wick up water. The molecular attraction between the water and the particles of soil and rock creates a force that can draw the moisture upwards against the constant pull of gravity into the driest of soils. These trees are not waiting for the rain to fall from the sky. They are drinking from a silent, invisible river that flows in the bedrock far beneath them. They are living proof of the desert's profound duality. A surface of stark, beautiful scarcity, sustained by a deep and ancient memory of abundance. The deep, fossil water beneath the sand is a memory of a wetter, greener time, a liquid story stored in the heart of the rock. But this is not the only story the stones have to tell. The entire desert is a library, an archive of immense age, and its pages are not made of paper, but of the very bedrock of the earth. To learn to see the desert is to learn to read this stone tape, to decipher the messages left here by deep time, by ancient life, and by the first stirrings of human consciousness. Every cliff face, every canyon wall, every fossilized bone is a word, a sentence, or a chapter in the great, silent narrative of our planet's history, a story that is written not in ink, but in the slow, patient language of geology. Look at the wall of a great canyon, carved by a river over millions of years. You will see distinct, horizontal bands of different colors and textures. A layer of deep red sandstone, a band of grey shale, a stratum of pale limestone. This is not random, this is a timeline, and the fundamental principle for reading it is known as stratigraphy. Like the pages in a book, the oldest layers are at the bottom, and the youngest are at the top. Each layer tells the story of a different world that once existed in this very spot. The limestone may be the compressed remains of an ancient, shallow sea, full of shells and marine life. The shale might be the hardened mud of a vast, slow-moving river delta. The red sandstone tells of a time much like the present, a great desert of wind-blown dunes. To look at these layers is to look back through hundreds of millions of years of planetary change, to see entire ecosystems rise and fall, all recorded in the silent, stratified rock. And embedded within these stone pages are the most remarkable stories of all, the stories of life itself. A creature dies, a fish in the ancient sea, a dinosaur on the floodplain, and its body is quickly covered by sediment before it can decay. Over the immense span of geological time, groundwater, rich with dissolved minerals like silica and calcite, seeps through the porous layers of mud and sand. This mineral-rich water permeates the creature's bones. Slowly, molecule by molecule, the original organic material is replaced by these hard, crystalline minerals in a process called permineralization. The shape, the texture, the very cellular structure of the bone is perfectly preserved, but it is no longer bone. It is stone. A fossil is a message sent across an ocean of time, so vast it is nearly impossible to comprehend. It is an echo of a unique, individual life, a tangible connection to a world that is utterly alien, and yet is the direct ancestor of our own. The stories in the stone are not all written by time and chemistry alone. Some were written by a human hand. On the flat, stable surfaces of boulders and cliff faces, you will often find a dark, glossy coating, a patina that looks like a coat of black or brown paint. This is desert varnish, and it is itself a record of time. It is a thin layer of clay particles, cemented to the rock surface by bacteria that draw manganese and iron out of the environment. This varnish builds up with painstaking slowness, taking thousands of years to form a substantial coat. And it was this dark canvas that ancient peoples used to tell their own stories. Using a sharp stone, they would peck and carve through the dark varnish to expose the much lighter rock beneath, creating enduring images known as petroglyphs. These are symbols of hunts, the outlines of animals, celestial maps, and abstract forms whose meanings are now lost to time. They are a record of the human mind beginning to make sense of its world, a conversation between a fleeting human consciousness and the geological permanence of the stone. And there is another record keeper in the desert, one that tells a story not of millions of years, but of individual years, with astonishing precision. High on the arid mountain slopes at the desert's edge grow the bristlecone pines, some of the oldest living organisms on Earth. These gnarled, ancient trees can live for nearly 5,000 years. In this dry, cold environment, their resinous wood resists decay for thousands of years more after they die. The story they tell is written in their growth rings, a science known as dendrochronology. In a year with ample rain and mild temperatures, the tree grows more, and the ring is wide. In a year of drought and hardship, the ring is narrow. By reading these patterns, scientists can reconstruct a year-by-year calendar of the climate, stretching back more than 10,000 years into the past. It is a history of droughts and floods, of warm years and cold, written in the very body of a living thing. The desert, then, is not a place of emptiness, but a place of profound memory, an archive where the stories of the planet, of life, and of humanity are kept safe in the enduring custody of stone and wood. This great library of stone and wood gives the desert a feeling of permanence, of a history recorded and fixed. But if we shift our perspective, we can see that the landscape is not just a static record of the past, but a dynamic, living system in a constant state of creation. The vast seas of sand, the great ergs that can cover thousands of square miles, may look like a frozen, motionless ocean under the quiet starlight. And in a sense, they are an ocean, but they are not frozen. They are simply moving on a timescale so slow that it is imperceptible to our fleeting human senses. The desert is a fluid landscape, and its movements are governed by the elegant, beautiful, and sometimes chaotic laws of physics. The science of fluid dynamics. The engine of this constant motion is the wind, and the medium it moves is the sand. This movement happens primarily in two ways. The first is a process called creep, which affects the largest, heaviest grains of sand. They are too massive for the wind to lift, so instead they are slowly pushed and nudged along the surface, shuffled forward by the impacts of their smaller, more energetic neighbours. But the real work is done by a process called saltation. Lighter grains of sand are lifted by the wind into the air, but they are still too heavy to remain suspended. So they travel in a low, bouncing arc, returning to the surface a short distance away. When a saltating grain strikes the ground, its impact dislodges several other grains, which are then launched into their own bouncing dance. This creates a chain reaction, a cascading, shimmering layer of bouncing sand, just a few inches thick, that is the primary mechanism by which the desert moves. The surface of the sand is alive with this constant, microscopic dance. The character of the wind itself is just as important. In the open desert, a steady wind can move in smooth, parallel layers, a state known as laminar flow, like the calm, deep current of a river. But this perfect smoothness is easily disturbed. When the air flows over an obstacle, even a single, small ripple in the sand, its orderly layers break apart into a chaotic swirl of eddies and vortices. This is turbulent flow. It is the intricate and continuous interplay between the smooth push of laminar flow and the chaotic churning of turbulent flow that acts as the chisel of the desert sculptor. It is this combination of forces that is responsible for the astonishingly regular and beautiful patterns that emerge from the seemingly random chaos of blowing sand. From these simple ingredients, bouncing sand and flowing air, the grand architecture of the desert self-organizes. A tiny, random patch of slightly coarser sand can create a small amount of turbulence, causing more sand to be deposited behind it. This small mound grows into a ripple. The ripple, in turn, creates a larger disturbance in the airflow, which encourages the formation of more ripples. Over time, and on a much larger scale, these ripples grow into the great dunes. The shape of the dune is a direct expression of the physics of its environment. Where the wind blows consistently from one direction, it creates crescent-shaped barching dunes. Where the wind direction is variable, it can build magnificent, multi-armed star dunes. The entire landscape is a physical equation being solved in real time, a perfect, emergent order arising from the simple interaction of wind and sand. We can see this elegant physics at work on the crest of a single dune. As the wind is forced to flow up the gentle windward slope and over the sharp peak, it is squeezed into a smaller space. This constriction forces the air to accelerate, a principle known as the Venturi effect. The fastest, most powerful wind is always right at the dune's crest. This high-speed wind is very effective at picking up sand from the peak and carrying it just over the edge, where it falls out of the turbulent air onto the steep, sheltered slope on the other side, the slip face. This is the mechanism of the dune's migration. It is constantly eroding itself on one side and rebuilding itself on the other, a wave of sand marching slowly, inexorably, grain by grain, across the desert floor. And so the starry sea of sand is not a static image, but a process, a flowing, breathing landscape shaped by the same universal laws that govern the flow of water and the swirling of galaxies. To see the desert as a fluid system, an ocean of sand governed by the impersonal laws of physics, is to see it from a godlike perspective, a view of grand, sweeping forces. But now, we can gently bring our focus back from this external, objective reality to the one place where the entire universe is processed and given meaning, our own internal world, the quiet landscape of the human mind. The desert is not just a physical place, it is a psychological one. Its immense scale, its profound silence, and its stark, simple beauty have a direct and powerful effect on our inner state. To stand here, under the boundless dome of the starry sky, is to experience a state of mind that philosophers and poets have long called the sublime, and which modern science is only just beginning to understand. This feeling of awe, the sense of being in the presence of something vast that transcends our ordinary comprehension, is not just an emotion, it is a neurological event. Deep within our brains, there is a network of interconnected regions known as the default mode network. This network is most active when our minds are turned inward, when we are engaging in self-referential thought, remembering our past, planning our future, worrying about our problems, or defining our sense of self. It is, in a sense, the neurological home of the ego, and recent studies in the field of neuroaesthetics have made a remarkable discovery. The experience of awe, such as that inspired by a vast natural landscape, has been shown to decrease the activity in this default mode network. In the face of overwhelming beauty and scale, the brain's constant, self-centered chatter begins to quiet down. The ego, with its endless list of concerns and anxieties, recedes into the background. It is the science behind the feeling of losing yourself, of having your personal worries shrink in the face of something so much larger. This profound sense of peace can also be understood through an evolutionary lens. The theory of prospect and refuge suggests that we, as a species, feel an innate sense of safety, pleasure, and calm in environments that offer us two things simultaneously: a wide, unobstructed view of our surroundings, prospect, and a place of safety from which to observe, refuge. For our ancient ancestors on the savannah, a high vantage point overlooking a wide plain was the ideal location, offering early warning of predators and a clear view of resources. The desert night offers this combination in its most perfect and absolute form. The prospect is infinite, stretching to the curved horizon on all sides and upwards to the very edge of the galaxy. The refuge is the cool, gentle, and silent darkness itself, a soft blanket of security that quiets the primal sense of alertness. This perfect marriage of prospect and refuge speaks to a deep, ancient part of our minds, signaling that we are safe and that we can finally, truly, rest. Beyond these specific effects, the desert night provides a more general and powerful form of mental healing through a process of cognitive quieting. Our modern lives are a constant sensory and informational assault. Our brains are relentlessly bombarded with a chaotic stream of sights, sounds, notifications, and decisions, all of which creates a high cognitive load. We are forced to constantly filter, process, and react, a state that leads to mental fatigue and stress. The desert, by contrast, is an environment of profound sensory simplicity. The visual field is reduced to the elegant forms of sand and the distant points of starlight. The soundscape is an almost perfect silence. This dramatic reduction in incoming stimuli is like a balm for an overworked mind. The brain is freed from its constant filtering duties, and this newfound cognitive quiet allows for deeper thoughts, clearer insights, and a state of restful, meditative awareness to emerge naturally and without effort. To capture the transformative power of this experience, we can draw a parallel to a phenomenon known as the overview effect. This is the name given to the profound cognitive shift reported by astronauts when they see the Earth from space for the first time. A tiny, fragile, blue and white marble suspended in the vast darkness. They often speak of a sudden dissolution of borders and national conflicts, a powerful sense of the interconnectedness of all life, and a recalibration of their own personal priorities. The desert night can offer a terrestrial version of this overview effect. By presenting us with a landscape whose spatial and temporal scales are so utterly beyond our human frame of reference, it forces us to see our own lives and our own concerns in a new context. In the face of geological time and galactic distance, our personal dramas lose their sharp, painful edges. The desert does not just show us a beautiful world, it gives us back to ourselves, but in a quieter, calmer, and more spacious form. This newfound sense of spaciousness, this gentle quieting of the self, creates the perfect inner state for contemplating the deepest and most fundamental forces that shape our universe. And there is no force more fundamental, and no place more suited to its contemplation than the great, forward-moving current of time. In our daily lives, time is an abstract concept, measured by the ticking of clocks and the turning of calendars. But here, in the desert, time's arrow is made visible. It is written into the very substance of the landscape. The entire desert is a monument to the slow, patient, and irreversible unfolding of time. A story that begins with the magnificent order of a mountain and ends in the profound simplicity of a grain of sand. This grand transformation begins with the subtle but relentless forces of weathering. Imagine a great mountain of granite, a seemingly eternal structure of immense complexity and order, its crystalline minerals locked together in a tight, intricate embrace. Every day, the sun heats its surface, causing the rock to expand by a minuscule amount. Every night, the cool air causes it to contract. For 1,000,000 years, for 100 million years, this gentle cycle of expansion and contraction repeats, creating infinitesimal stresses and strains that, over the long eons, blossom into cracks. When the rare rains come, the water carries a small amount of dissolved carbon dioxide from the air, forming a weak carbonic acid. This acid seeps into the cracks, slowly dissolving the mineral bonds that hold the rock together. This is a process of unimaginable patience, operating on the vast canvas of deep time, the slow, inevitable surrender of order to the patient forces of decay. This process, the crumbling of a mountain into sand, is the most beautiful and poignant demonstration of one of the universe's most profound and inescapable laws, the second law of thermodynamics. This law tells us about the nature of energy and the direction of time. It tells us that in any closed system, the overall level of disorder, a quality that scientists call entropy, will always increase. A hot object will always cool down, spreading its concentrated heat energy out into its cooler surroundings. A cool object will never spontaneously gather heat from the air to become hot. An ordered structure, like a mountain, which represents a great concentration of matter and energy, will, given enough time, always break down into a more disordered, scattered state, like a field of sand. It is this fundamental one-way street of increasing entropy that gives time its forward direction. The reason we can't unbreak an egg, and the reason a mountain can't uncrumble into sand, are one and the same. The desert, in its entirety, is a breathtaking illustration of time's arrow. If we follow this arrow to its ultimate, theoretical conclusion, we arrive at a concept that is not one of fire and chaos, but of ultimate, profound peace. If the entropy of the universe is always increasing, if all concentrations of energy and matter are always spreading out, where does this process eventually lead? The theory is known as the heat death of the universe. It describes a far, far distant future, trillions of years from now, when all the stars have burned out, all the black holes have evaporated, and all the energy and matter in the cosmos have become perfectly, evenly distributed. The universe will have reached a state of maximum entropy, a state of perfect equilibrium. There will be no hot and no cold, no movement, no change. It will be a vast, silent, and perfectly still place. A final, gentle settling into a state of eternal rest. And as we sit here, in the cool, quiet stillness of the desert night, where the temperature of the air and the sand have nearly reached their own equilibrium, we can feel a faint, poetic echo of this ultimate cosmic peace. There is a profound beauty in this realization. The force of entropy is not a destructive one, but a creative one. The decay of the mountain is the birth of the dune. The end of one kind of order is the beginning of another, simpler, and perhaps more peaceful kind of order. The relentless, forward march of time, governed by this fundamental law, is what has sculpted this landscape, a place whose stark beauty brings us such a sense of calm. We are sitting in the midst of one of the universe's great, unfolding processes, a slow and irreversible transformation from complexity to simplicity. And in the quiet acceptance of this majestic and gentle inevitability, there is a deep and abiding peace, a sense of being perfectly at home in the silent, flowing current of cosmic time. In the quiet acceptance of the universe's physical laws, In the gentle flow of cosmic time, our minds can become calm and spacious. And in this newfound quiet, we can begin to contemplate a mystery that is not written in the stars or the stones, but is alive in the very heart of the beings that move through this silent landscape. The universe is not just a grand, impersonal machine of matter and energy, unfolding according to the laws of entropy. It is also, in some mysterious and beautiful way, a place of awareness. The cool sand, the distant stars, the scent of the night air. These things are not just existing, they are being experienced. And so, we can ask the most gentle and profound of questions. What is it like to be the fox, with its world of subterranean sounds? What is it like to be the moth, navigating by a map of scent? What is it like to be the snake, seeing the world as a ghostly image of heat? This is a journey into the mystery of subjective experience, a mystery we can never fully solve, but one we can approach with a deep and humble sense of wonder. The most logical place to begin is with the biological hardware of awareness, the nervous system. We can imagine a vast spectrum of complexity. At one end, we have an insect, like the night-flying hawk moth. Its nervous system is largely decentralized, a network of nerve clusters called ganglia, distributed throughout its body. Much of its behavior is driven by instinct and direct response to stimuli. The scent of a flower triggers a flight pattern, a shadow triggers an evasive maneuver. Its inner world may be a simple, elegant dance of sensation and reflex. At the other end of the spectrum is a mammal, like the desert coyote. It possesses a large, highly complex, and centralized brain, crowned by a cerebral cortex capable of memory, learning, social understanding, and planning. Its inner world is likely a rich tapestry of past experiences, future intentions, and perhaps even something akin to what we call emotion. The physical difference in these neurological structures suggests a corresponding spectrum of consciousness, from a simple flicker of awareness to a bright, complex flame. Building on this idea, we can imagine that each creature is enclosed within its own unique sensory world, a concept the biologist Jakob von Uexküll called the Umwelt. The Umwelt is the small slice of total reality that an organism can perceive, a self-world defined and limited by its sensory organs. The reality we perceive, with its rich colors and stereoscopic vision, is just the human Umwelt. But all around us, in this very same space, countless other Umwelts are unfolding. The bat's Umwelt is constructed not from light, but from the echoes of its own voice, a world of acoustic textures and spatial relationships that we can barely imagine. The snake's Umwelt is a dual reality of faint reflected light overlaid with a vibrant, glowing world of thermal energy. The moth's Umwelt is an ocean of chemical gradients, a landscape of scents that are as real and as solid to it as the dunes are to us. The desert night, therefore, is not a single, objective place. It is a magnificent, layered mosaic of these countless, overlapping, and utterly private, subjective worlds. And here we arrive at the edge of what science can currently explain. We can map the nervous system, we can understand the physics of the senses, and we can observe behavior. But we cannot yet answer the deepest question of all. Why and how does the firing of neurons, the simple exchange of electrochemical signals, give rise to the rich, private, first-person experience of being? Why does the scent of creosote smell like that? Why is the sight of the Milky Way so profoundly moving? This is what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness. It is the mystery that separates the objective, physical world from our subjective, inner reality. The quiet, contemplative darkness of the desert night is perhaps the most perfect sanctuary in which to sit with this profound, unanswered question, not in search of a solution, but in simple, silent awe of the mystery itself. Perhaps the most beautiful way to think about this mystery is through the concept of emergence. A single molecule of water, H2O, has no property of wetness. But put trillions of them together, and the property of wetness emerges from their interactions. A single grain of sand is a simple, inert object. But put billions of them together and subject them to the wind, and the complex, wave-like structure of a dune emerges. Perhaps consciousness is a similar phenomenon. A single neuron is a relatively simple biological switch. But in the human brain, 100 billion of them are connected in a network of such staggering complexity that the number of possible connections exceeds the number of atoms in the known universe. Perhaps from this impossible complexity, the property of awareness simply emerges a whole that is infinitely greater and more mysterious than the sum of its parts. And so, the desert is not just populated by creatures, it is populated by consciousnesses. Each living being, from the smallest insect to the largest predator, is a tiny point of light, a flame of awareness, experiencing the universe in its own unique and precious way. The great silence of the desert is not an emptiness. It is filled with these countless, invisible, and silent worlds of being. From the vast, expansive mystery of these countless, active consciousnesses, we now narrow our focus, drawing it down from the moving creatures and the open sky to a single, still point of pure potential, buried just beneath the surface of the cool sand. Here, in the quiet darkness of the earth, lies a single, tiny seed. It is an object of profound simplicity and patience, a silent testament to the incredible power of life. To wait. In a world defined by its constant, grand cycles, the spinning of the planet, the orbiting of the moon, the slow march of the dunes, the seed represents a state of near-perfect stillness, a life held in a state of suspended animation, waiting for its one perfect moment. This state is not death, nor is it mere passive waiting. It is a highly controlled and sophisticated biological condition known as dormancy. The seed is a fortress, designed to withstand years, decades, or in some cases even centuries of hardship. Its outer coat is tough and resilient, a shield against the abrasive sand and the gnawing of insects. But its deepest defense is a chemical one. Within the seed is a small quantity of a powerful plant hormone called abscisic acid. This hormone acts as the guardian of dormancy, a chemical key that keeps the lock of life firmly shut. It is a powerful growth inhibitor, and its presence ensures that the seed will not be fooled into germinating by a brief, light shower, an event that would mean certain death for a young seedling in the desert. The abscisic acid is a promise keeper. It ensures that the seed will only awaken in response to a deep, prolonged, and life-sustaining rain, a rain that is powerful enough to wash the inhibitory hormone away and signal that the time for waiting is finally over. And what lies sleeping inside this patient fortress? Not just a collection of cells, but a universe of information. Tucked within the seed is the embryo of a future plant, and within every cell of that embryo is its genome, the complete, coded blueprint for the organism it is destined to become. Written in the elegant, four-letter chemical alphabet of DNA, this genetic library contains the accumulated wisdom of 1 billion years of evolution. It holds the instructions for building roots that can seek out the deep memory of water, for constructing stems that can withstand the wind, for designing leaves that can turn sunlight into life, and for creating flowers of breathtaking beauty that will one day open to the desert moon. All of this knowledge, an encyclopedia of survival, is compressed with an efficiency that dwarfs our own technology into a physical space smaller than a grain of rice. The seed is an ancestor and a descendant all at once, a physical link in an unbroken chain of life stretching back to the planet's earliest beginnings. To protect this precious library of information through its long wait, the seed enters a state of profound metabolic standstill. Life, as we know it, is a process of constant energy conversion, of breathing and burning fuel. But the dormant seed brings this process to a near-total halt. Its respiration slows to a rate that is barely detectable, its internal chemistry all but frozen in time. It is life reduced to its absolute essence, a state so quiet and so still that it borders on the mineral. By entering this state of deep hibernation, the seed effectively steps outside of the normal flow of time. Days, years, and decades can pass, and the embryo within remains almost unchanged, its stored energy and its precious genetic information perfectly preserved, waiting for the one signal that will call it back into the world of the living. And when that signal, the deep, soaking rain, finally comes, the awakening is not a biological process at first, but a purely physical one. The dry, hard seed coat begins to absorb the abundant water through a process called imbibition. Driven by the powerful forces of osmosis and capillary action, water rushes into the seed's cells, causing it to swell with a force that is strong enough to split stone. This influx of water is the great trigger. It reactivates the dormant enzymes, flushes away the inhibitory hormones, and kickstarts the stalled metabolic machinery. The silent, waiting library is opened, and its instructions are read for the first time. The great, stored potential is finally transformed into action as the seed coat breaks, and the first, tender root, the radical, pushes its way out, taking its first, tentative hold on the damp, dark, and welcoming earth. In this one tiny object, we find the entire story of the desert, a history of ancient resilience, a present of incredible patience, and the powerful, unwavering promise of a future yet to come. Within the patient, dormant seed lies the memory of its entire biological lineage, a connection to the deep past of life on Earth. And now, in the deepest and most silent hour of the night, in the profound stillness just before the first hint of dawn, we can extend our sense of connection even further, beyond the history of our planet to the very beginning of the universe itself. The starlit sky, with its brilliant points of light and its dark, empty-looking voids, holds one final, magnificent secret. For the darkness between the stars is not truly dark, and the silence of the cosmos is not entirely silent. The entire universe, every cubic inch of space in every direction, is filled with a faint, invisible, and perfectly uniform glow, the most ancient light in existence. It is the afterglow of creation, the remnant heat from the Big Bang, an echo of the very first dawn. It is called the cosmic microwave background. This light has been traveling for 13.8 billion years, and it is a message from a time when the universe was in its infancy, only 380,000 years old. At that moment, the cosmos was not the cold, vast, and dark place it is today. It was a hot, dense, and opaque fog of plasma, a seething, uniform glow, brighter than the surface of any star. But as the universe expanded and cooled, a moment of transformation occurred. The plasma cooled enough for protons and electrons to combine and form the first hydrogen atoms. Suddenly, the universe became transparent, and the light that had been trapped within the fog was released, free to travel unimpeded through space for the rest of time. The cosmic microwave background is that very light, the first light to ever travel freely through the cosmos, now arriving at the Earth, and at us, in this present moment. But if this light was once hotter than a star, why is the universe now so cold? The answer lies in the expansion of space itself. For 13.8 billion years, the fabric of space has been stretching, and this stretching has had a profound effect on the ancient light traveling through it. Just as the sound of a siren is stretched to a lower pitch as it moves away from you, the wavelengths of this primordial light have been stretched by the expansion of the universe. This cosmic redshift has stretched them so far that they are no longer in the visible spectrum, or even the infrared. They have been stretched into long, low-energy microwaves. And as their wavelength has stretched, their energy has decreased, which means their effective temperature has dropped. The fiery glow of the early universe has cooled to a faint, residual warmth of just 2.7 degrees above absolute zero, a temperature of 2.7 Kelvin. The sky is not empty. It is filled with this faint, cold, and ancient warmth. What is most astonishing about this light is its near-perfect uniformity. No matter which direction we point our sensitive instruments, the temperature of this background radiation is almost exactly the same, a property known as isotropy. This tells us that the infant universe was an incredibly smooth and homogeneous place. However, with modern, space-based telescopes, scientists have been able to detect minuscule variations in this temperature, tiny fluctuations of only 1 part in 100,000. These slight ripples in the otherwise smooth fabric of the early cosmos, known as anisotropies, are the most important imperfections in the history of the universe. For these tiny patches of slightly higher density were the seeds of everything that exists today. Over billions of years, the patient, relentless force of gravity acted upon these seeds, pulling more and more matter into them, until they grew into the first stars, the first galaxies, and the great cosmic web of clusters and superclusters that we see around us. When we look at a map of the cosmic microwave background, we are looking at the blueprint of the cosmos, the faint, initial sketch from which the entire, magnificent structure of the universe has emerged. This ancient light also defines the very limits of our vision, because it is the oldest light we can possibly detect, and it has been traveling towards us for nearly the entire age of the universe. The distance it has crossed creates a boundary around us. This boundary is the edge of the observable universe. It is not a physical wall at the edge of space, but simply the horizon of our sight. Any part of the universe that lies beyond this horizon is so far away that its light has not yet had enough time in the 13.8 billion year history of the cosmos to reach us. And so, as we sit here in the profound stillness, we are bathed in the gentle, residual energy of our own creation. The silence of the desert night is not an emptiness, but a fullness, a space filled with the oldest story of all, the faint, cosmic hum of the moment that time itself began. From that first, cosmic dawn, whose faint echoes still wash over us in the quietest hours of the night, our journey now turns to the gentle promise of our own terrestrial dawn, which is even now beginning to announce its arrival on the eastern horizon. The great cycle of darkness and light, which has guided our journey through the hidden life of the desert, is turning once more, bringing our exploration to its peaceful and natural close. The sky in the east is no longer the deep, star-dusted black of the deep night, but is softening into a deep and luminous indigo, a silent and gradual awakening that mirrors the slow, gentle rhythm of the world we have discovered here. The transition from night to day, like the transition from day to night, is not a sudden event, but a graceful and beautiful process, governed by the elegant physics of our own atmosphere. The first glow of the coming day appears in the sky long before the sun itself is visible. This gentle magic is the result of atmospheric refraction. As the first rays of sunlight from the still unseen sun travel through the vacuum of space and enter the upper layers of our atmosphere, they are bent, or refracted, by the air itself. The atmosphere acts like a giant lens, bending the light down over the curve of the Earth, allowing us to see the sun's glow while its disk is still physically below the horizon. This is why the dawn is not a sudden flick of a switch, but a soft, slow, and ever-brightening crescendo of light, a gentle reintroduction to the world of the sun, giving our eyes and the world's nocturnal creatures time to adjust. As this new light fills the world, the great thermal engine of the desert begins to reverse. The sand and the air, having reached their coolest point just moments ago, now begin to respond to the first, faint energy of the new day. The ground, which all night has been broadcasting its heat out into the coldness of space, now stops its exhalation. It begins, once again, to absorb the incoming solar radiation. You can almost feel it in the air, a subtle shift in the current of energy, the desert taking its first, slow, quiet in-breath of the morning, a gentle warming that will, in a few hours, grow into the familiar, powerful heat of the day. The long, cool, and peaceful outbreath of the night is complete. This physical transition is mirrored by a great shift in the living world. The drama of the nocturnal kingdom has reached its conclusion. The coyote returns to its den, the scorpion retreats into its crevice, and the kangaroo rat disappears into the cool, humid safety of its burrow. The cast of the night silently takes its leave, and as they do, the creatures of the day begin to stir. The morning chorus of the desert is a subtle one. It is the first, tentative chirp of a cactus wren, the low buzzing of a carpenter bee warming its wings, the silent, watchful emergence of a lizard onto a rock that is just beginning to gather the day's warmth. It is a changing of the guard, a quiet, orderly, and ancient transition from one world of life to another, a perfect and seamless handover of the landscape. And this great, planetary cycle of light and dark, of warmth and coolness, is not just an external phenomenon. It is a rhythm that we carry deep within ourselves, in every cell of our bodies. These are our circadian rhythms, our own internal, biological clocks, which evolution has synchronized over millions of years to the spinning of our planet. The gentle pull towards sleep as darkness falls, and the natural slow stirring towards wakefulness as the light returns are a profound biological echo of the Earth's own journey. Our own quiet journey tonight, from sunset to sunrise, has been a journey in perfect harmony with this ancient, life-sustaining pulse. We have explored a world that first seemed empty, but which has revealed itself to be a place of intricate life, deep memory, and profound, calming peace. And now, as the sun returns to warm the desert sand, you can let the quiet stillness of the night you have just experienced accompany you as you drift into a deep and truly restorative sleep. Thank you for joining me on this gentle journey into the quiet life of the desert at night. It has been a privilege to share this quiet space with you. If you have enjoyed this story, I would be so grateful if you would consider leaving a kind comment, a like, or subscribing to the channel. Your support is what makes these peaceful explorations possible. For now, all that is left to do is to let go, to allow your mind to be as quiet and as spacious as the landscape we have just walked through together. May your sleep be deep and your dreams be peaceful. Good night.